Hello everyone and welcome back into a brand new Civilization 6 kind of tutorial video. My name is Bradley and earlier this year I made what has now become our most successful YouTube video, and it was all about building districts and adjacency bonuses. And in that video I said that in the future I would make a video that went over which districts you should build. In the first video, we talked about how to make any district good, what you should look for to make adjacency bonuses work for your districts. But I said explicitly in that video, we'll make another video to talk about which districts you should actually be building. So here is this video. I'm not gonna lie, I totally forgot to make that video. It only took like 3 people in the same week typing in the comments that I forgot to make it that forced me, I wanna do this, made me realize that I should probably make this video. So I hope you enjoy it. It's not a super high production video. It's more of just a chit chat between you and I. We're gonna hop into a game. It is probably the worst game I could have picked to display this, which makes the video even funnier. It is like nearing the end of an Apocalypse Cleopatra domination game we were playing on stream. It's a very fun game. If you want to check out the live stream, you can check that out in the description below. We stream Civ and Football Manager each like 3 or 4 times a week, so it's a good time over at the live stream. Otherwise, kick back, relax, and I hope you leave this video. Well, I hope you click the subscribe button, but then I hope you leave this video knowing a little more about which districts you should be building in your games and which districts kind of suck that you shouldn't build. As we talk about districts here, just keep in mind we're going to talk about them in an average sense. Like, should you be building these in your average game? Why is this district good or bad in your average game of Civ? Obviously, if you're in a faith victory, go for more holy sites. If you're in a science victory, go for more campuses. And as always, play Civ the way you want to play it. Try new things, build more districts, build less districts, build different districts. Play the game, learn the game, however you want to approach it. Don't let what I'm about to tell you kind of steer your course too crazy in one direction just because I said it. Mess around with it, try new things, and enjoy the game. There's a couple key principles we're going to talk about off the bat that kind of guide my decision making when I'm trying to power rank which districts I want to build. The first is understanding what a district takes up. It takes up production. You have to produce the district. So if a city has low production, it'll take longer to produce a district. So picking that district is more important to get the exact right one. Also, longevity in the game. Your capital city, because it's in the game longer, will more than likely have a higher chance of building more districts than your 12th city that you settled 150 turns into the game. Right? And so you need to think about those things as you're picking your districts. Obviously, in your first couple cities, you have less districts to choose from, but you can make a few more errors in your decision making because you have more opportunities to correct it. But in your last cities, where you only might have enough population for one district or enough time for one district, you have to be a little more careful about which districts you are prioritizing. The next thing, too, is the population. In a city like Bofa here that has 14 population, right, we can build lots of districts here. So we don't need to be as picky because we can build as many districts as we would like. That doesn't mean you should. It just means you can, right? We can build, like, what is that, 5, 6 districts here? There are some cities. Do we have a low population city? Hooray! Hooray has been in the game for a long time, but just doesn't have a lot of food. And so it doesn't have a high number of population, which means we don't have a lot of district options. So picking the right districts becomes more important in a city like this. We don't have a lot of production to build them, and we don't have a lot of available options. Obviously, you want to think about which districts are good for your victory. If you're going for a science victory, a campus is obviously great for you. It gives you what you need for a science victory. Another thing you want to keep in mind too is there a way to get the yield the district gives me without building the district? So if I build a campus, it is giving me science. Now it's giving me other things, great scientist points, those types of things. There's other things it does, but mostly I'm building it to give me science. Now, if I want to get science in another way, there's not too many other great ways to get science in the game. Building campuses are one of the only ways. Well, there's a whole nother tier of districts, like entertainment complexes and industrial zones, where you can get their yield in a different way. If you want production, you don't necessarily have to build an industrial zone. You can go for lumber mills, you can build some mines. There are ways that you can get production that aren't from industrial zones. That doesn't mean you shouldn't build them. It's just good to know when you're trying to prioritize what you want to build. If what you're looking for is production, you have other options. If what you're looking for is science, you don't have a lot of other options. Another thing to keep in mind when building districts, something I talk about a lot on stream when people ask, is I always recommend getting your good districts when you can. So if you have a city that has the option of like a +6 campus, a +2 commercial hub, and a +1 holy site. If you would like a campus, a commercial hub, and a holy site, you definitely want to put that campus down first because it's your good district, right? It's easiest to put it down first. It comes early in the game, but it's also giving you the best bang for your buck. Another example might be in a city where you might have a +5 holy site or a +1 campus that you can build. Even if you're not going for a faith victory, faith can still be useful. If you get the monumentality golden age, if you have faith up here to purchase great people, you might want to use faith. You have Grandmaster's Chapel to purchase units. Faith isn't bad, even if it's not a faith victory. So in that city, you might still want to build the +7 holy site just because it's your better district, even if you're going for a science victory. Now, everything we talk about is all relative. Everything depends on your game, who you are, who else is in the game, how you want to play the game. I can't really give you hard and fast rules to prioritize, but those are all some things you should think about kind of as we're getting started here. When can I build these districts? Is it a good district? Am I getting good adjacencies? Do I have the population to build multiple districts? Will this district help me towards my victory condition? Those are some things you want to start thinking about as we move forward here. Now I want to talk about what I call the holy trinity of districts. The holy trinity of districts are campuses, theater squares, and commercial hubs. And it's like AEIOU, sometimes Y, sometimes holy sites squeaks in to make it a quadruple force. But in most games, you want to have a good solid base for each of the 3 holy trinity districts. As you can see here, the campuses and the commercial hubs come quite early in your tech tree, allowing you to build them soon into the game. Same with your theater squares. They come quite early here. They also all give you bonuses that you can't really get in other ways. This is a domination apocalypse mode game, which really isn't the best example, but in this save here, we have 10 campuses, 5 theater squares, and 5 commercial hubs or harbors. Some of this we took over from other people, some of this we built ourselves, but we have a nice base of the Holy Trinity districts. The reason why you want campuses is obviously for science. No matter which victory you're going for, you are going to need science. In this domination game, we needed science to kind of power up our units to make sure we could win on a domination apocalypse mode game against deity AI, so we need a high amount of science to catch up technologically. Obviously, in every game too, you need a high amount of culture. If you take a look at the culture tree here, so much of your game is reliant on these cards, on having better governments, on being able to progress this tree forward. So even in a game, if you're not going for a culture victory, you cannot ignore theater squares. We have 5 in this game. That sounds about right to me. If someone said we had like 7 to 8 campuses, 5 to 7 theater squares, and 5 to 7 commercial hubs, I would have said perfect. Now, campuses and theater squares you need for the yields they give you, among other things. Again, great scientist points, great writer points, all of those things, but we're just talking about the districts right now and whether you should or should not be building them. And in this case, campus, theater squares, absolutely 2 of the Holy Trinity. You should be building lots of them in your games, even if they're not the best. They still give you science and they still give you culture, which are hard things to come by without building those districts. The next in the Holy Trinity is commercial hubs. Now, you might be thinking, wow, I have other ways of getting gold if I would like it. A lot of the tile improvements give you gold. The reason why commercial hubs are so important and are in the Holy Trinity, one of them is that they come really early. There's something that's available to you really early. But unlike holy sites that are also available really early, the functionality of commercial hubs is that they give you trade routes. When you build a commercial hub, if you build a market in there, getting that trade route is so important. In this game, obviously bad example. We're on apocalypse mode and trying to nuke everybody. But trade routes give you more gold, more yields. They help with alliances too, right? In a science game, they mesh well with democracy. They make other people happy. But trade routes are one of the most effective ways to kind of keep up in a game of Civilization, especially gold-wise, especially with building roads, especially with a little bit of, not diplomatic favor, but a little bit of friendship going towards the AI. They love it if you send trade routes to them. They can help with envoys at city-states if you have Owls of Minerva in secret societies. Trade routes are just so important to a game of Civ. You need to be building commercial hubs and markets for those trade routes. Gold is nice too. I'm not ignoring gold. Having the gold is nice. We have 933 gold per turn. That is a nice thing to have, right? But it's not the main reason you do it. The gold is nice. There are other ways of getting gold, but it's like the 1B reason. The 1A reason is those trade routes. If you have a city that doesn't really have a good spot to put a commercial hub for adjacencies, but has a good spot to put a harbor will have the same effect with the trade routes. You can build a lighthouse in the harbor. Now, I don't think harbors are as good as commercial hubs. I think Great Admiral points are not as good as Great Merchant points. I think the buildings aren't as great either. If I'm building a commercial hub, it's kind of nice moving into banks and stock exchanges and those types of things. But overall, we're in it for the trade routes, so I recommend harbors as well because the lighthouses will give you trade routes. Just remember, you can't build a harbor and a commercial hub in the same district and get a trade route from both, right? So either the market or the lighthouse will give you the trade route, but not both in the same city. All right, we've done it. We've covered the Holy Trinity. If you leave this video with nothing, build lots of campuses, build lots of theater squares, build lots of commercial hubs / harbors, mostly commercial hubs if you can, for trade routes. Those are the blaring red light tips you should be taking from this video. Now, there are other districts, lots of them in this game. You should build those too, but they're a little more nuanced, and we're going to talk about them now. Next up is a holy site. Look, holy sites are amazing. They're really easy to get adjacencies on. Just stick them next to mountains, easy adjacencies. Stick them next to natural wonders, easy adjacencies. All right, you can usually get a couple good holy sites in a city. Faith is great. I think faith is fantastic. You can buy great people with faith. There are a lot of mechanisms in the game. If you have secret societies, going Void Singers allows you to convert that faith into science, culture, and gold, which is awesome. You can buy units with faith in Grandmaster's Chapel. Having a lot of faith, if you're getting Monumentality Golden Ages early in the game, can be helpful. If we're going on an average game of Civ, that's not a faith victory. Sorry, microphone. That's not a faith victory. Your average game of Civ, if we're talking about the ratio we talked about earlier where we had like, I don't know, 7 to 10 campuses, 5 to 7 theater squares, 5 to 7 commercial hubs in a 12-ish city game, throw in 2 holy sites. I think that's totally fine. Throw in 2 holy sites. Probably throw them in your earlier cities where you have a higher population and it's your 3rd or 4th district. Now, like I said, if you like holy sites, build holy sites. Don't let me tell you not to. I think in your average game of Civ, having 1 or 2 good holy sites to pump up these faith numbers is really, really helpful, especially combined with Earth Goddess, which gives you a lot of faith. We didn't take it this game, but the Pantheon Earth Goddess is amazing. It's one of the best 2 pantheons in the game, and combining that with a couple good holy sites for faith, even if you're not going for a religion, can be helpful. But if you have 12 holy sites in a 12 city game of Civ and you're not going for a faith victory, it's probably not optimal. I'd say 2, 3, that's the kind of range you want to be in by the end of the game. All right, everyone's favorite, industrial zones. Everyone who's new to Civ builds a million of these things, and it drives me absolutely bonkers. So I have a very nuanced take on industrial zones, and I'm going to tell you every word. I just want to let you know that I'm super biased against them. It's the one thing I have strong opinions about. Actually, probably entertainment complexes too. But if you like building industrial zones, do not let me stop you. The only time I really build them is if I have a flood-heavy city where I'm wanting to put a dam down. If I can get a dam, an aqueduct, and good industrial zone, having 1 for the great engineer points can be really helpful. There's a lot of great engineers out there. Bonus if I can build it in a oracle city to boost the amount of great engineer points I'm getting, but I very rarely ever build it for production. The second instance I'll build it is I build 1, at least 1 in every science game. when I'm trying to build a Ruhr Valley because it's a requirement. Other than that, I don't often build industrial zones. It does happen. There are other situations. But for me, it's mostly just if I need it for a Ruhr Valley in a science game, or if I'm in a flood-heavy city that has a dam, that needs a dam to cover a lot of floodplain tiles, there's usually a way to get some good adjacencies. Now, let's talk about some of the reasons I really don't like industrial zones. And I don't try not to build them. I just don't build too many of them. I sneak them in on Twitch every once in a while when people ask me to build industrial zones because I think it's good to learn. I think it's good to try new things. Every patch brings something different. So I try to build them when I can. I usually end most of my 12 city civ games with somewhere between 0 and 2. Most games that have them have 2. Most games that don't have them have 0. So I'm going to say most of my games, I don't build them at all. Few reasons. The first reason is the industrial zone is one of the few districts that costs its yield to produce. You have to put X amount of production into building a industrial zone, and it has to pay back that production, right? So if you put 200 production into an industrial zone, that's a pretty generous 200 production, and you have a +2 industrial zone, that takes 100 turns to pay itself back. Now, usually that math isn't that extreme, right? But it has to pay off its own production before it starts giving you extra production on top of that. The next thing that makes industrial zones kind of awkward is just when in the game you acquire them. At the point in the game when apprenticeship comes in, you probably have 3 to 4 cities, somewhere in that range. I'm just spitballing off memory here. Most of those cities have like 6 or less population, and you've already unlocked the holy trinity of districts that you really want to get on top of, and you've unlocked holy sites, and you've unlocked encampments, right? So by the time you get to industrial zones, if you either have to not been building other districts up until this point to have the space for it, right? And if you've done that, you're missing out on science, you're missing out on culture, you're missing out on faith and gold, and there are other ways to get production while you're waiting. You can put some mines down, right? There are other things you can do for production while you're waiting. So I just think if you're not building these districts early in the game while you're waiting for this, it's usually not an ideal use of your time. That combined with the fact it doesn't even pay itself off until you get farther away. Like, by the time it pays itself off, you're over here somewhere, and now it's a little bit awkward. The next reason I don't really build industrial zones all that much is because we normally take Earth Goddess as our pantheon. Earth Goddess is a very appeal-focused pantheon, giving us more faith for tiles with high appeal. Industrial zones add negative appeal to their adjacent tiles. Now, obviously, this isn't every tile in the game. It's not a huge deal. Earth Goddess can still be effective with industrial zones, but it is something that knocks the industrial zones down a peg for me because I want to get as many high appeal tiles as possible, and even taking away just a few of them isn't really ideal. The one thing I will say for industrial zones, though, is a lot of new players don't know this, but if you have a factory in your industrial zone, its production bonus, this is just straight off the Civilopedia, its production bonus is extended to all city centers within 6 tiles that do not already have a bonus from this building type. So having one factory, one industrial zone, like right here, right, like in the middle within 6 tiles of a whole bunch of different cities will add a production bonus to every city within 6 tiles. So I think it's a good, smart thing to do. I don't often do it, but I think is a reasonable, like, deity level way to play the game, where you always build one really good industrial zone kind of right in the middle of a bunch of cities to get that bonus production to all of them. I think that's probably helpful and a great way to play the game. If you're like listening to this and you're going to go like, hey, I'm not going to build as many industrial zones and see how I feel, but you still want to build one because you love them, build one in the middle of a bunch of cities that are all close together like this. All right, encampments. A lot of the same problems as industrial zones in terms of appeal and those types of things. The difference, though, is encampments really have like one specific purpose they serve. In a domination game, I will build quite a few of them. If it's not a domination game, I will very rarely build any. All the encampments we have in this game, we built one. This is a domination game. This is an actual domination game. I built one. I built two. I built 3. I built 3. I built 3 encampments in a game where I was trying for domination, and the rest of them I took over from cities. We're back a few turns in the save. We actually won this game. There's a lot of nukes and giant death robots involved. Right? But even in this game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I settled 8 of my own cities. One sec here. 1, 2, no. We took these ones. Anyways, it's 3 or 4. I built 3 or 4 encampments. I can't remember which cities I took and which cities I didn't because Twitch renamed them all. Right? I built 3 or 4 encampments in a domination game. If I don't play a domination game, I don't really build them. I will say, however, strategic positions are amazing for encampments. If you are kind of stuck in a bind and you would like to defend yourself from somebody, having an encampment to kind of cut something off or to be able to put an archer in can be really, really, really helpful. I don't think there's anything wrong with throwing an encampment or 2 in every game of Civ just to have a place that can produce units quickly in case you want to go to war or in case someone wars on you, and to have it in a good spot in a high production city ideally, to be able to cut off a choke point or block somebody from taking you over. I think that's totally fine. I'd say in your average game of Civ, like 1 or 2 encampments. Next up, everyone's favorite, the entertainment complex. I have built maybe 5 entertainment complexes since we started streaming in March. If you go to Twitch and watch Deity Civ streams, I can almost guarantee they will not be consistently building entertainment complexes in every game. The best reason, and in my opinion, one of the only real reasons you should be consistently building entertainment complexes, is to get the Colosseum. The Colosseum is a great wonder, almost impossible to get on Deity, which is why most people on Deity, I don't think, build entertainment complexes, right? But on lower difficulties, you can get the Colosseum every game. I think it's great. And it needs to be next to an entertainment complex with an arena. So that is one reason to build entertainment complexes. The next thing people usually tell me when they ask me about entertainment complexes is, but how else am I meant to get amenities? And the reason why they ask that is because amenities is a complicated thing that we need to talk about in a different video. So if you are unsure how else to get amenities other than to build entertainment complexes, keep building them. It is a good way to get amenities. But man, like using your production and district slots and stuff for entertainment complexes almost always feels bad. Quick overview of some ways you should be looking to get amenities. Get 1 copy of as many luxury resources as you humanly possibly can. All right, so each continent spawns 4. Ocean ones don't count, so if you have ocean ones like pearls here, you could be 5 in your continent. You can go to this continent and find a split, so there'll be 4 different luxuries on Europe, and then 4 different ones in Gondwana over here, right? So we have silver on Gondwana. We will not find silver over on Europe anywhere. If you do not have access to these continents because you have not settled any cities on them, you can trade your resources. Let's see if we have an example here. No, I don't have an example. One second, I'm gonna find an example. Nope, here we go. I do not have foxes. Or furs, sorry, they're not called foxes. I always call them foxes, doesn't matter. I do not have furs. He has 2 furs. They will not trade if there's only 1, because the one is giving you the amenity. The duplicates are not, right? So if you have duplicates, I'm going to want his furs. He's going to laugh at me, but he doesn't have silk, right? So I might offer him my silk. Now, he's really mad at me because I am nuking his cities. So he's probably not going to make this trade. Actually, he doesn't even ask for that much for it. 6 gold per turn early on, obviously a terrible deal. Later, we have 900 gold per turn. Like, this is not a huge deal for us, right? But I can trade here, and we can both swap amenities. You can also straight up just trade the furs for gold. Just buy it straight up for 30 turns, and you will have amenities that you didn't have access to without building an entertainment complex. You just got to watch out because it expires after 30 turns. Also, keep on the lookout for those great merchants that give you jeans, and the city-state that gives you, like, cinnamon, and those ways to get amenities, too. Also, just a personal note, I don't think, like, we're doing just fine in this game, and every city is, like, aching for amenities. I think you'll be fine at an amenity deficit. People, I think, usually see the red ticker and get really anxious. you'll be fine if your city doesn't have the full amount of amenities for the entire game all the time. I recommend building maybe one entertainment complex per game. I just personally don't really like them or find them useful. But if you do, it's your life. Keep building them. Up next, we have aqueducts. The only time I really buy aqueducts, make, build, produce aqueducts, is if I really want to settle a city that's not on fresh water, where I cannot get the housing. So if you want to settle a city, where's a good example? Do we have some space? Maybe we don't. 1, 2, 3, yeah. If you want to settle a city on this silk tile right here, but you're not going to be on water in any way to get a little more housing, build an aqueduct to connect them on one of these 2 tiles. Aqueducts need to connect to a water source or a mountain within 1 tile of the capital. That's the only time I really build aqueducts. Feel free to build one if you're going to build an industrial zone. I think building one just for the sake of having the industrial zone adjacency can be kind of nice, but that's mainly what they're used for. So this could range anywhere between 0 per game, which happens quite often, to like 6 per game if we're settling a lot of cities not on fresh water on, let's say, a Highlands map. It fluctuates a little bit, but on average, yeah, you can throw a couple in there every once in a while. Not going to hurt, but only in cities where you need the housing boost it gives you. If you're settling on water, probably not worth it. It's also worth noting at this point that some district aqueducts included, I believe, dams, I believe spaceports, and I believe neighborhoods. I could be wrong on spaceports. Someone's going to have to Google it. But there are some districts, I'm saying that as if I can't Google it and edit this video, but I'm going to leave you hanging on the spaceport thing. But definitely aqueducts, dams, and neighborhoods, they do not require a population limit. So building an aqueduct does not take away from your ability to build another district. Just takes away the tile, but it doesn't take up a slot. I said a slot with a very weird inflection there. That was strange. Let's move on. Dams! Build a dam if your city is flooding all the time and you hate it. Or you know your city's gonna flood all the time and you know you're gonna hate it. Honestly, though, dams are kind of nice because you just know if you need one, right? And you can only build them if you probably need one. So I don't know what else to say. If your city's gonna flood, build a dam. If it's not gonna flood, you either can't build a dam or don't build a dam. I will say, though, sometimes I'll leave like a small city with only 1 or 2 or 3 floodplains tiles undammed, because that way if it floods, those tiles might get better and I can just know not to put anything on those tiles. So sometimes not damming is a good idea. Dams are of a high production cost. They take a while to build, those types of things. So like over here, obviously in our capital or the city we took over with all of these tiles that can flood that have a lot of important things on them, you gotta build a dam. Next, let's talk about neighborhoods. I almost never build neighborhoods. You just don't need to build neighborhoods. As you can see, we have a lot of really high population cities. We have exactly 0 neighborhoods. It's got 19 population. And we were not having any housing trouble without neighborhoods. Build some farms, that'll give you some housing. Build some sewers, that'll give you some housing. There are just other ways to get housing that aren't neighborhoods. All that neighborhoods do is give a really good district that's relatively wasteful to defend with a spy for your enemies to throw a spy in to set off tanks and stuff in your empire. I don't know. Tell me in the comments why I should build more neighborhoods. I just don't. I don't really see people building neighborhoods when I watch streams and whatnot. There's just other ways to get housing that you actually want to do. Like, I want to build farms in my games, and I want to build sewers, right? So you're not even going out of your way to get the housing that's not using the neighborhood, which just gets spied on. Then you have units coming everywhere, and it's just a mess. The government plaza. Obviously, you should build your government plaza in all of your games. It's a really good district. The 2 different deployments of the government plaza I recommend are a government plaza in between a bunch of districts because they give district boosts. For instance here, maybe a smarter version of me might have put this commercial hub over on this tile right here, and then put a government plaza in the middle, giving the adjacency boost to the campus, the holy site, and the commercial hub, which would be over there. So that's one way to deploy it. The next way to deploy a government plaza that a lot of people don't really know about, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen from time to time. We utilize this strategy. Government. Come on, I know how to spell. is that it gives you loyalty. There it is. We found it. Provides +8 loyalty per turn. So let's say you're cruising along, you're in a golden age, but your super low population city, Gordian here, is next to this big baddie 12 population Parsa, and you're about to head into a dark age. You might want to put your government plaza up here just to stop this city from getting loyalty flipped. The Diplomatic Quarter. It's been in the game for a few months. I'm still not entirely sure the best way to use it. I don't build it in every game, but I build one in most games. I think it's fun. It's relatively low cost to build. I usually build it when I look at my districts and I go, huh, I forgot about the Diplo Quarter. I usually build it in my Pingala city. I usually find the city that has Pingala in it. Pingala always gives me lots of great person points, and he's usually the first person to get sniped by an enemy spy. So I usually put it next to the city center in a city with Pingala to defend Pingala. But I believe the Diplo Quarter also gives you an amenity or something cool for being a +1 envoy. It's not an amenity, it's an envoy. Otherwise, like enemy spies operate at 2 levels below. Build it, don't build it. I don't know. I build it in most of my games. I usually build it in my Pingala city. I'm not going to lie. I haven't been super adventurous with my Diplo Quarter. I don't think it's going to make or break the game. But using it to defend a good governor is probably the best use of it. All right. Spaceports are up next. Spaceports take a lot of production to build. You should probably only ever be building them if you're going for a science victory. Very occasionally, if your game is going really late, and you have lots of gold, and you have like Reyna, who can buy districts at this point of the game. Maybe you want to buy a spaceport to launch the Earth satellite so you can see the whole map. I might recommend just getting open borders and sending literally a cavalry unit throughout the map, whatever. Build spaceports in a science victory. Don't build them if it's not a science victory 99% of the time. In your science victories, you need 1 spaceport for like 95% of the game, moving to 2 to 3 spaceports by the end of the game. That's a conversation for another time, but like overall, you're probably not building a load of spaceports in your games. I don't build them at all in games that aren't science victories. Aerodromes. I mean, look, everybody loves planes. Frequently in games where I don't build encampments, which is most games I'm not going domination, I will actually put an aerodrome on either end of my civ for a little bit of defense. So you chuck an aerodrome here, you chuck an aerodrome maybe up here somewhere, right? And then you can build a couple of planes if you need some defense, and you can station them around your empire. Bombers are the best offensive and defensive tool you can have, really. I think it's very, very effective if you are worried about, in the late game, someone coming to war with you. Having 1 or 2 aerodromes on like the outsides of your empire where you can build a few planes in and have them zoom around and destroy some units if you need them to can be effective. Otherwise, I don't really have a great case against not building them, other than if you're not using them, you could be building more useful districts. You could be building builders. You could be working campus research grants. There are other things you can do with your city. So if you see that you can build aerodromes, that doesn't mean you should build it. But, you know, in almost every game, who am I to tell you not to have some fun with planes? It can be an effective defense mechanism. One thing I will caution is if you're going for a domination victory, instead of building aerodromes everywhere, you just need the aerodrome to build the planes. You can use military engineers and build what are called airstrips all over the map on flatland tiles, and that's what I've been doing in this game to move my planes around to one area without building more aerodromes. I only have 1 or 2 aerodromes to build planes. They're 2, they're right there. And then, is that 3? 3 aerodromes to build planes, and then we're zooming them around all over the map. The last thing we haven't talked about is the canal. I can't remember the last time I built a canal. Honestly cannot. I can remember the last time I built an entertainment complex. I cannot remember the last time I built a canal. All right, in short, this is the end of our time together. In short, build lots of campuses, theater squares, commercial hubs, build some holy sites, everything else, do whatever you want. I recommend not building loads of everything else, but we went over it in the video already. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe button are there. You know what they do. Let me know what you want to see next in the comments below. I only remembered to do this video, I'm not going to lie, because of a YouTube comment, so it's really nice for you to throw your ideas down there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just appreciate you. I appreciate you all so much. And we'll see you in the next one.